When I opened my eyes, my doctor was standing there with my husband. I could just see these real sad eyes of the doctor looking down at me, and I said, "What?" And he said, "I'm so sorry, but you have cancer." I couldn't believe it. I was like, "No, no, no, no! We already did cancer."
The fire inside, the fire inside.
Welcome to the Fire Inside podcast, where we tell real stories of how we persevere, overcome, and rise from extraordinary circumstances. Every conversation here is powered by the vulnerability and resilience of survivors, advocates, and change makers who found a way forward even when the path wasn't always clear. I'm your host, Sarada. Kathleen is a mother, a professor, a cyclist, and a two-time cancer survivor. What stood out to me the most about her story is how close it really is to all of us. There's this way that we move through life where we just keep things going. We don't always stop to question every signal and every feeling and every shift in our body or in our lives. We just stay busy. We stay focused, and we trust that everything is probably fine. And sometimes it is, until something changes that. As I just said, Kathleen faced cancer twice, not because of something that she did or didn't do, but because life doesn't always give you that kind of control. And like every conversation on this show, this isn't about the diagnosis. It's about the person, who you are when something like that enters your life, and how you choose to move through it. This is The Fire Inside, and you're listening to Kathleen Hancock. Can you talk to me about where life was at for you the first time that cancer entered your life?
Yeah, the first time I was diagnosed with cancer was thyroid cancer. I was working in a relatively new job in San Antonio. I'm a professor, and my husband and I had adopted our daughter from China about a year and a half before that, and had this beautiful baby girl, and life was good, settling into the job. And I went to see the doctor because I had this lump that had gotten big enough that when I swallowed, people were like, "Hey, what's going on here?" And I had had this lump for a long time, but it had been very, very small, and it had been biopsied, and no problem. But now it was getting bigger. And then on top of that, Chief Justice Rehnquist had been diagnosed with aggressive thyroid cancer. And about the time I ended up having my surgery, he was dead from thyroid cancer. So but when I heard about his diagnosis, I decided, I probably should go get this checked again. And I remember when the man the technician took the biopsy, he said, "Don't worry, these are almost always benign." When I got that call, I remember I was sitting in my office, and when the doctor calls you, it's never good, right? I mean, you don't want to hear directly from the doctor. And yeah, when I heard the C word, I was I was shocked. We don't really have cancer in my family.
So I just find that so interesting because anybody who knows me really well knows I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac. So,
Oh yeah.
even if it wasn't growing, I probably tell myself it is and go get it checked again. So, where do you think it comes from that you did have a sense of, was it peace maybe, or not bothered? How are you not bothered by, just even in the back of your mind, like, I got to watch out for this just in case?
I'm going to say this is a Hancock trait. My whole family, we are famous for blowing stuff off. Like,
Okay.
oh, I'll be fine. I think my sister has a story of her daughter falling, and it turns out like breaking her ankle. And my sister, like, you'll be fine. Just, you'll be fine. I fell one time with my dog, and it turns out I broke my wrist, but my immediate reaction was, I'm fine.
Wow.
So I think it's kind of a little bit in our family
Okay.
history to just be like, you'll be fine. Just keep going. I think that's actually a trait that later serves me very well. But it also was maybe not a good trait at that point to be just so like, don't worry about it. I'm fine. Let's just keep on with life. There's plenty to do, and we don't need to be running off to doctors.
Got it. Got it. So, was it the tumor that was benign that had become malignant? Is that how that works? Or was there another one that they found?
Yeah. So they did the procedure, they did the CT, and that's when they discovered actually on the other side of my thyroid, which I would never see, of course, on the back side, there was another tumor. And that tumor was small, so it wasn't causing pressure or probably any symptoms. But it turns out that was the one that was malignant. This big one in front was benign. So thank goodness for this big benign one.
Yeah.
I learned about the malignant one on the other side.
Interesting. And when you did learn that, talk to me about what changed for you mentally, physically, emotionally, and in every way.
I think my initial reaction was denial, just like, no, that can't be right. Cancer? I mean, did you say cancer? I don't have cancer. Yeah, he persisted. Yes, the biopsy shows you do have cancer. And I immediately called my husband and said, I need to come home. I have cancer. And boy, that chokes me up even just saying it now, all these many years later. It
It
totally
chokes me up
rocked
hearing it.
our world. Yeah, yeah. Um, and we followed up. This was with the endocrinologist. He recommended a surgeon. We were told by the professionals, this is a very simple surgery. It's done all the time. They will remove the entire thyroid, and then you'll have radiation to make sure we caught everything. But you don't need to, look any further. We've got this, and not to worry. Now, I, of course, informed all my family members, my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad. And my brother is actually the one who said, you're my sister. I don't want any risks. You need to go to a world-class cancer center.
Wow.
Yeah, but we did start doing some research, and thankfully, Houston is where the world-class MD Anderson is cancer center. That's all they do 24/7 is cancer. And so we decided we were going to go there.
Okay. And what difference did that make?
I think the key difference is that because they're world class, cutting edge, they don't do standard of procedure. They do whatever the latest research is showing.
Okay.
And in my case, what that turned out to be is that my tumor was small enough that I did not need radiation.
Okay.
And the thing about, there's all different kinds of radiation. I later had radiation with my second cancer. With this one, you actually drink this potion that makes you radioactive, and you have to be put into or kept in a hospital room, and there's a glass window or door, and nobody can go in there who isn't wearing like full protective gear. And they said they would not allow my daughter to come in. My daughter was 2.5 at the time. And I was just, that's actually what really got me. I think maybe if I, lived with just my husband, I'd be like, yeah, he'll be fine. But the fact that I had this little girl, I just couldn't stand the idea that for 2, 3 weeks I
Mm-hmm.
would be behind this glass wall and she couldn't touch me, she couldn't hug me. That just broke my heart. At MD Anderson, though, they said in your case it's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So they found that the research now shows that it makes no difference in your recovery. So, that was really great. And I'm so glad that we were able to avoid that. And who needs to be, drinking nuclear material?
Yeah. So knowing that, did you ever have any feelings of fear that it could come back if you opted to not do the radiation therapy?
I really just felt so good about this guy, this amazing surgeon, world-class surgeon. I mean, that to me is the other thing is like, and I know it's not available to everyone. We were lucky that my job was super supportive of me. My husband was supportive of me. My family, my mom and sister came out to see me. I had the actual surgery on my 45th birthday, my actual
Oh, wow.
birthday. We went out the night before and had dinner, and I was like, all right, having cancer surgery on my birthday. Uh,
Great way to celebrate.
yeah, yeah. But because we had done all this homework, because I just knew so much about him, I honestly no, I had no thoughts of concern that I couldn't trust him on
Awesome.
this.
Okay. So how long was it from the moment that you were diagnosed to the moment that you were Ned is how you say it? Or do you
Yeah,
say NED?
Ned.
Ned.
I mean, I
Okay.
say Ned, but
Mm-hmm.
in this case, I do remember feeling like we jumped right on it. But when I looked at the actual dates, the diagnosis was mid-January and the surgery was mid-March. So I think it did help that they had said this is very slow growing. There was no sense of like, you got to get on this. So, and some people might feel 2 months. Well, that's really fast. I mean, you had to
Yeah.
like absorb
It's
this
exactly what I was thinking,
information.
actually.
Yeah, okay. Find a doctor, assess the doctor, go to MD Anderson for the diagnosis, get all the testing done. Um, so yeah, that was 2 months. So definitely we jumped right on it. I was like, and they even told me like, you don't have to jump right on this. Like you're in the middle of your semester, if you want to wait until the summer, that would be fine. I was like, are you kidding me?
Right.
I've got cancer in my body.
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
let's get it out of there.
For sure. So after the surgery, what happens next in your life? Had anything changed or did everything go back to normal?
Really pretty much back to normal. I
Okay.
I didn't have any real negative side effects. I
Okay.
had this scar which was very, very pronounced initially. And actually at one point my daughter told me I need a band-aid. And I said, oh, okay, why do you need a band-aid? And she put it on her neck like this. And she said, I'm like mommy. I have a
Oh.
sore here. I know. I was like, oh. I have to tell you, she was such a joy. I mean, having a little one like that at a very perfect, sweet age,
Mm-hmm.
because when we were at MD Anderson, everybody in there has cancer or is with someone who has cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Many of them will die, and it's children, middle age, old people, all ages. But I'd get on that elevator and I would just look around and think, all of us have cancer, or we're here with someone who has cancer. That can be so overwhelming and sad. And, you'd see people with big bandages and things like this. My daughter was just sort of whatever. I remember just holding her hand, walking down the, long aisles, and she would just be waving to people, hi, hi. And this big smiles would come on their face because she
Oh.
was just so sweet. And
Yeah.
so, she knew what was going on. She
Yeah.
just was like, mommy's got a sore and we're going to take care of it.
Yeah. That's really sweet
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So I was a relatively new mom, and that meant that that life is very busy.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point too, we knew we were adopting a second daughter from China,
Mm-hmm.
our Willa June. And we were waiting to, meet Willa. And so we had a big focus on that. So, I had all kinds of stuff going on. And I have to say, I didn't really think that much about it. Not to say I didn't celebrate the 5 year mark. And they actually gave me a certificate. The hospital did.
Oh.
Yeah, you've graduated into the
Mm-hmm.
general population. Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Did you ever feel like, especially at that 5 year mark, that you would ever see it again? Did you ever have a small
No.
fear? Okay. All right.
No, I thought I'm done. I've had my cancer. Um, yeah.
So that being said, take me through what life was like the second time that you were diagnosed.
Yeah, so we had moved from Texas. As a professor, I had gone up for tenure. I was denied tenure for reasons that I do not believe were warranted, related to merit.
Oh, wow.
And that's a whole other story, which I have actually told in a public forum on a stage.
Okay.
But that was a lot of trauma and drama there.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, I had already gone on the job market and was thrilled to take a job at the Colorado School of Mines, where I work now. Mines is a science engineering university. It's a public university, and they need a few social scientists like me. I'm a political scientist. And I like to say I teach the engineers that people and the world matter.
Okay.
So that's my current job. And I was brought in to teach in a master's program that's focused on energy, which is my focus. And that was, everything was going great there.
So how long was that after you'd been in Texas that you moved to Colorado?
Yeah, so I was in Texas for 7 years.
Okay.
And it was 2009 that I took the job at
So about
Mines.
5 years after your thyroid surgery.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so right around your 5 year mark.
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
I think I celebrated the 5 years there in Texas.
Okay.
And then we moved. Yeah. So yeah, so I grew up in Denver, Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just so excited to be back in Colorado. And I, grew up like a typical Coloradan. We were hiking and swimming and cycling and camping and outside all the time.
As you're back in Colorado, right? It's years and you're, forming a life with your family and, taking them back to your home and introducing them to activities that you grew up around. Did it make life look different to you at this point than it maybe did prior to either cancer or that toxic job you had or any other life challenges you've had?
There's a kind of view that if you've faced down death in whatever way it might be, whether it's beating cancer, recovering from a horrible fall, whatever, that you'll look at life differently, let the small things roll off your back, whatever. That's never been me. I still, I take things hard sometimes.
I'm literally thinking that you're about to be like, yeah, that's what it feels like, and I'm going to have to ask about, and you're like, that's not me. No, everything was the same.
No, I still have to have people tell me it's a small thing, let it go. I'll be like,
I love
but
that.
it's really bugging me. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, maybe you should let it go. I don't think people, there might be times when you reflect, you have more gratitude. I would say that's the case, that I became a lot more reflective
Okay.
of things like, tearing up when, at the Thanksgiving table, I'm so grateful for my family. That might bring tears or tearing up in a way it didn't before, because I felt like I could have left my family way too early. I'll one day leave, my children. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But as children, elementary school kids or babies, like, no, that is not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So I do think when I would pause to reflect, I would have much stronger sense of like gratitude, knowing that there is this thing that could have taken my life.
Got it. Yep. I think that's it's a perspective that even if that's the case, it doesn't necessarily help you get through the next thing of like your challenge sometimes. So you're like, yeah, obviously that, but I still have to make my way through what's in front of me. So that being said, talk to me about being diagnosed with cancer a second time.
Yeah. So it was 2020. So as I like to call it, COVID times. So I had in March of 2020, I had turned 60. So I had my husband had surprised me at a big party. It was super fun. And the next day, the country shut down. So a lot of my friends are like, oh, I always remember when COVID shut down, everything, because it was Kathleen's birthday and then the day after. And so it was COVID period. And because of COVID, we did something we normally never did, which is we drove to California to see our parents. My mother-in-law is in Santa Cruz, and both of my parents are in the San Diego area, as is my sister. So we decided we're going to drive out there. And so this was in the summer. And we also brought our dog with us, who people will be like, oh, well, Finn is a COVID dog. It's like, well, actually, we got him before COVID was such a big thing. Things weren't shut down. We got him in January. And he actually plays a role in some of my recovery. He was just so wonderful to have with me. But so we took Finn and, the whole family, and we went out to California, and we went to Santa Cruz first, and then we went to see my family. And at my sister's, I had some blood and some blood clots in the toilet. And I was like, well, that's really strange. Um, but I kind of kept this to myself for a day or two because I wanted to see what would happen. And that was it. It was kind of a one-time thing.
Oh, okay.
I
So
did
was it accompanied
eventually.
with any kind of like other feelings at all? Did you have any
No,
nausea, stomach ache, anything? Nothing. Okay.
nothing. No other symptoms. I was otherwise totally fine. So I do have this theory, which no doctor has substantiated, that
Of course.
sitting all that time in the car
Mm-hmm.
and eating these corn nuts, which is my habit on a road trip,
Mm-hmm.
they have aggravated that tumor
Mm-hmm.
enough that I had those symptoms, which I might not otherwise have had. It was basically about 10, 12 days after I got back. And I called my doctor and said, I had a virtual appointment with her. And I said, here are the symptoms I've had. And when she asked me how much blood, I think I said, I don't know, maybe a quarter cup. And she like kind of saw her eyes widen. And she said, we're doing an emergency colonoscopy tomorrow,
Okay.
which, it's hard to get a colonoscopy appointment. They're now like 6, 8 months. But yeah, she got me in the very next day. I think I thanked her like 100 times. She's like, yeah. You've already thanked me for this.
In that roughly week and a half to 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had still only
Yeah.
had that one incident, or had there been more?
Yeah, nothing else had happened, which is
Okay.
part of why, that old Hancock approach. I'm fine. Not a big deal. And honestly, one of my girlfriends was having her just regular colonoscopy, and she mentioned it. And that kind of got the light bulb going of, I was like, yeah, I should probably tell my doctor about
Okay.
this
I was
thing.
just going to ask
This
you
is a
that.
weird
Like,
symptom.
what made you want to tell? Okay. Got it.
Yeah. If she hadn't said that, would I have just, done nothing for longer? Possibly.
I mean, honestly, I kind of agree with you, because if it's a one-time thing, I think a lot of people the reflex might be, oh, maybe it's a hemorrhoid, or because there's only so much
Yeah.
you know about these things, or maybe I ate some corn nuts and it's a random thing, because if it only happens once
Yeah.
and there's no other symptoms, that's not usually tell your doctor about it.
Yeah. I don't remember having any other symptom. And like later when I was, had chemo or, other treatments, and they wanted to see if I still had cancer, sometimes somebody would say, well, I'm sure they got rid of it all. Look how great you look. And I said, I looked this great when I had cancer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was doing great. I was happy. I was healthy. I was riding my bike.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing all kinds of stuff. So, colorectal cancer, all cancers are different,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people do live for quite some time having no idea what is growing inside of them.
Interesting.
And I had a colonoscopy, um, I guess like 4 years before that. I wasn't due for one for several more years. So if I'd waited for that regular colonoscopy, it may have been much, much
Got it.
worse than it was.
Got it.
Yeah.
So what happened after the colonoscopy was done?
So again, I didn't know this at the time. I knew when the doctor calls you, that's not good. What I didn't know is if you open your eyes from a colonoscopy and your doctor is standing there, this is not good. You want the nurse standing there.
Got it.
When I opened my eyes, my doctor was standing there with my husband, and he had on his mask, both the doctor and my husband, and I could just see these real sad eyes of the doctor looking down at me, and I said, "What?" And he said, "I'm so sorry, but you have cancer." I couldn't believe it. I was like, "No, no, no, no. We already did cancer. Are you sure?" And he said, "We'll wait for the biopsy, but almost certainly it's cancer." So I guess the tumors are very clearly cancer. They're not precancer polyps, they're like a tumor. So he had no doubts whatsoever. And then, they rushed the biopsy and it was confirmed very quickly, I guess the next day, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So it's spring of 2020. You have two daughters in high school. You have zero expectation of cancer coming back. You had already beaten it. And then you just get diagnosed with rectal cancer. And the world is quarantined from COVID. What's going through your mind when you learn that you have this cancer after what you said about the initial shock of and denial of like, no, this can't be happening again? What happens next?
Yeah, I mean, actually, because I'd had cancer before, I knew we're going to get on this immediately.
Okay.
There's no delay. Um, I'm going to go to a great cancer center.
Around the time that you were diagnosed, what was the conversation like with your kids?
We agreed, my husband and I, that we would low key this. We would just keep telling them, I'm going to be fine. We caught it early. It hasn't spread, and I have to go through some stuff, but I'm going to be fine. And at this point, the older daughter had graduated from high school,
Mm-hmm.
and she was taking a gap year and was going to go to Korea, a country she'd never been to and didn't speak the language,
Mm-hmm.
but she loved K-pop,
Yep.
and she wanted to not
Aw.
start college yet
Okay.
during COVID.
Got it.
So we talked to her. She was like, should I still go? I feel like I should stay home. I want to be here to support you. My daughters are both super loving and super supportive. And I said, no, I wouldn't feel good about that. I want you to go to Korea. Um, I'm going to get the chemo. I'm going to be fine. Um, I encouraged my husband to go with her and get her settled into Korea and then come back. And so, yeah, I asked my daughter, who, I say she got stuck at home taking her mom to her first chemotherapy session, which is something most high school kids don't do. And I said, I just recently asked her this again. I was like, how did that feel? Like, how were you feeling about it? She said, you and dad played it so low key. it's not a big deal, that I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't think you were going to die. I didn't worry about you that way. I mean, I was fine taking you to chemo. That was fine. And I knew dad was coming back and it was all fine.
So in those moments when you were to yourself and you felt your lowest, what was it that pulled you out of it?
The times I felt the lowest were, and we might get to this, but the surgery initially had complications and I was stuck in the hospital for such a long time. I feel like it was 3 weeks. I went back and checked that timeline too. It was 15 days, but it was supposed to be 2 or 3. So it felt like an eternity. And honestly, the only thing that would get me to the other side is feeling better. I mean, other times when I felt terrible, it was when the chemo was at its worst. Chemo accumulates in your body. So the first one, a lot of times I felt this way, and I saw people post it on Colon Town. Oh, I did great with the chemo. I'm great. I'm going for a run. I'm taking the dog. Like, oh, I must be one of those lucky people. Chemo is going to be totally easy for me. And people would say, well, it was just your first one. It accumulates. And boy, it did. And by the third time, I was knocked back on my heels and I spent more time not being able to do much of anything. This is kind of where my dog Finn came in, as we have a little guest apartment behind us, and I would go back there a lot and watch TV and sleep, and Finn would just be by my side the whole
Oh, that's
time.
really
And
sweet.
they say dogs can
They
sense
can.
sickness. And yeah, I think Finn really felt it.
Mm-hmm.
So of those times, or when you're just like, I never got sick. I never had nausea. Thankfully, I was just one of those things. Some
Mm-hmm.
people do, some people don't. But I can remember things like, if I cried, which, sometimes I would just cry because something hurt or because I was just feeling so down and like, I'm so sick of this. And um, a searing headache, like a knife through your skull would happen, which would make me cry from the pain, which I would
Mm-hmm.
then have to stop. And I was like, I can't even cry. Like this stupid chemo
Mm-hmm.
won't let me cry without putting me into excruciating pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, really, it just had to be, you have to know, like with the chemo, 8 sessions, so over 16 weeks. So I just had to know there'll be an end. There'll be an end. I'll get my taste back. I'll be able to stand again. I've got the love. I've got the support. I'm going to beat this. And we're almost done with whatever it was. We're almost done with the chemo. We're almost done with the radiation, the surgery.
Considering this was such a different experience than the first time around, did you ever have any anger or resentment?
I definitely had that why me, but it wasn't why me because I'm so, pure and wonderful and somebody
Sure.
else should get this.
Right.
It was a legitimate kind of, I'm a professor, like the professor question, like, I wonder why I got this.
Mm-hmm.
I exercise, I eat really well, I'm a vegetarian. I don't fit a lot of the profile, a lot of the risk factors.
Mm-hmm.
But, like through Call Town, I would meet people like, well, I was an Ironman professional
Mm-hmm.
and I got this.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot about colorectal cancer that we don't understand. We don't know. There are things that put you at higher risk, things you can do to put yourself at lower risk. But you can have just like fluky cases. I do think my conclusion is because I've had it twice, and I would tell my family, like, I'm just a cancer catcher.
Okay.
My body doesn't do a good job of getting rid of those precancerous cells. And so I'm more vulnerable.
So before you went to New York, you threw a party. Tell me about that party.
So when it was time to go for, we had scheduled my surgery and we were going to be heading to New York, we decided to have a party, my husband and I. And we got this pinata. We put a big C on it. One of my daughters found it and put this big C on it. And I got a bat and was like hitting this thing. And we have this video like beating cancer.
I love
And
that.
yeah, it was
I
really
want to see
funny.
that video. That's amazing. What a good idea. What a great thing to beat.
Literally beating cancer. Yeah. And just had a lot of friends there, supporting me. And I was so thin and so weak. But I was buoyed by this love and support. And a lot of people who have cancer talk about this. You are surprised by who comes out and supports you, and maybe sometimes who doesn't. And I don't hold that against anyone. We all have our own ability to handle illness, and especially something scary like cancer. Maybe a loved one has died from it, and you just can't go to your friend's party. Um, but one of my friends, who I didn't even really know that well, but she was in my cycling group, and she came to that party, and she said, she took me aside and said, I'm going through cancer too, and I just want you to know, like, I'm here with you, and we call her, sisters in cancer together.
Mm.
um, that means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that there is actually research that shows having communities of support increases your chance of survival.
That's beautiful. I mean, community support and togetherness can really just give you that energy to just, elevate you through difficult situations. And I think we see that time after
Yeah.
time. So to know that you had, the self-awareness to know that that would help, and that you just needed to feel that love and support and be able to say that is crucial. So
Yeah.
that's very awesome to hear and inspiring also. So then, the party happens, you go, you have surgery. Talk to me about what happens after the surgery.
So this surgery was supposed to be 2, 3 days in the hospital. And it is to remove a section of my rectum, leave me with a shortened rectum. And as what they have to do, though, there's many surgeries involved. I think I counted. I had like 7 or 8 surgeries by the end of the day, but this is
Mm-hmm.
the big one. And what they do is the ileum is where, or the ileus is where you connect the small intestines to the colon. So there's a little section in there that makes that connection. And so you need an ileostomy. So most people know about a colostomy bag, but this is an ileostomy bag, and it's liquid waste. So it's on the right side of your body. And that is because you can't have any waste going through this section that's been cut and is healing. Interestingly, they staple it back together. My
Wow.
surgeon has shown me this on the scan. Like, see
Yeah.
these staples? Um, and so they keep this bag in place for 2 to 3 months. And then they say, okay, now it's fully healed. The surgical site is fully healed, and we take off the bag. They push this little part of your small intestine back into your body and sew it back up.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, it's pretty crazy because they like literally pull out a piece of your intestine, out of the skin and attach it to this bag. Well, mine wasn't working right. And I I kept getting excited. I was trying to understand, what am I looking for? What am I looking for? And I would look at this bag and say, look, it's filling right. It looks right. And every time they'd be like, no, that's not how it's supposed to look. You're still not there. You're still not there. Well, this was going on and on. And I couldn't keep food down. I wasn't getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And I was starting to feel like I was going to die there because I thought, I can't take in nutrition. And my doctor came in on day 10, and he said, I have a plan B. And I said, thank God, because plan A isn't working. I'm going to die here. And he's like, okay, you're not going to die here. Let me tell you about plan B. So he said, plan B is that we're going to take out the ileostomy bag. And I said, but wait, what? I thought I would die of sepsis or something horrible would happen. It's only been 10 days. I thought I'm supposed to go 3 months. And that's when I learned that actually, in almost all cases, you are healed in 10 days, which is pretty phenomenal. They've like taken out a big section of your rectum, stapled it back with your colon, and 10 days later, your body is healed. It's pretty amazing. So they did a final test where they put dyed fluid through your body, and if it doesn't leak, they're like, yeah, you're healed. And that's what happened.
Got it.
So on day 12, he did the surgery and they put me back together. And that's kind of unheard of. Hardly anyone has that same story, but I'm very grateful. I'm sure I could have learned to live with an ileostomy bag for 3 months. I was really into cycling. I am really into cycling. I worried, like, how am I going to ride my bike with this bag? People are like, you could do it. My uncle did, so I got that encouragement. I did believe I could do it. I just didn't want to do it.
And you didn't have
And
to ultimately.
I didn't have to. So I left the hospital all put back together again. And this June, I will be able to celebrate 5 years of being Ned from the surgery.
That's amazing. Does beating cancer twice take away the fear of a potential reoccurrence?
No, I would say it increases just having had it. The fact that I, did beat it doesn't make me think I could do it again. It makes me, and I want to like be careful with that language. Like, there's a whole thing in the cancer community about not using the word warrior, which I actually am fine with that myself, but a lot of people don't like it. And the reason they say is because it sounds like if cancer like beats you in terms of if you end up dying from cancer, it's because you weren't a good fighter. That is not true. We don't know entirely why some people lose their lives to cancer and other people don't. And I think that one of the things, first of all, I want to say, don't ever be afraid to offer your words of support to a cancer patient. You might get it wrong. It is possible. But I think most of us, we know these are being said to be supportive.
For sure.
But there are certain things a lot of us don't want to hear. And I think that there's a term called toxic positivity. And that is, you can do it. You're so strong. You got this. And I'm sure it's gone. I am with that group. I didn't like hearing those things because it did suggest I'm somehow responsible for the outcome, which may not be good.
It's really important
have a good
to
outcome.
say that, though, to help teach the narrative, because unless you're in the situation, you don't know what it feels like, and you don't know what feels good to hear and not hear. So that's really important. And I love that you're saying that.
Somebody used the words with me. She was actually dying of stage 4, and she did pass a few weeks after I finally got to meet her in person. But she was such a, person who was just open about everything. And she tried a lot of things. She did Western medicine. She said, I did resort to some of these non-traditional things that don't have much support because, I'm trying to save my life. But she had this expression of, feel all the feels. And I think that is so right on. Like, if you're feeling grateful, good, feel that. If you're feeling weak and vulnerable, that's okay. Having people tell you, like, just be positive. I could be dying of cancer. Like, I'm supposed to be positive about that. Or, being positive will help you. That actually is not what I'm like when I say being held up by community, that's what I'm talking about. That's not the same as just have a positive attitude. That's suggesting that if you allow yourself to feel the fear, that you're sort of signing your own death certificate. This is not supported. And it's not the case. So I do want to emphasize, though, that even though I said these are things that, I didn't want to hear, that a lot of the cancer community talks about and even has a name for, toxic
Yeah.
positivity, that people shouldn't just say, well, then I'm not going to talk to you because
Right.
I might say the wrong thing.
Right.
The best thing you can say, if you don't feel comfortable with the exact words, is just, I'm thinking of you. You're in my heart. You have my support. Let me know if there's anything you need. Things like that are neutral and fine. I will say that, let me know if you need anything. Be aware, probably they're not going to respond to that because that's too vague. I think a lot of people know this about all kinds of issues, whether it's, your mother passing,
Of course. Yeah.
your dog, whatever. But if you can offer something specific, like, I'm coming to your house, I'm bringing this to you, or, let's have coffee tomorrow at 9 o'clock, something really concrete. Those are really better. But also just realize sometimes, somebody who's going through cancer doesn't want to see anybody, can't eat. I mean, often we have like mouth sores that you just can't eat, so yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about the club that you founded.
So I was a cyclist before I got cancer, and I became a much more active cyclist after I got cancer. Again, I made that pledge to my oncologist that I would exercise with a vengeance. And I belong to a group called the Venus Bike Club. It used to be called Venus de Miles, which is very clever play on words. And so it's all women. And I really got into that, but as I got stronger and stronger, I wanted to do more climbing. So doing more elevation gain, riding in the foothills, even all the way up in the Rocky Mountains. And so I did found this sort of subgroup that I call Partners in Climb. And this is just actually mostly it's women who are in the regular Venus group, but it's an email group that I put together. And all through the summer, especially, I plan rides up into the mountains or just climbing here lower in the foothills. And that group has just meant so much to me because they're my group.
And how does riding with them or spending time with them elevate you or empower you in ways that nothing else does?
I think feeling like I'm part of a group is so important. My mom was always into team sports and sorority and all of this stuff. And she sent me an email a couple years ago and she said, I'm so glad that you found a group of women to be with, to exercise with, to get outside. And she said, I never would have expected that this late in your life, 60s, that you would be so strong and so athletic. And I come from a very athletic family. So by their standards, I'm not very
Mm-hmm.
athletic,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm pretty damn strong.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that camaraderie. And I
Mm-hmm.
love cycling with my husband too.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something special about, a group of women and kind of how we do it and how we support each other. So it's meant a lot to me. I don't know what would happen if I couldn't do this because I see it as being a big part of my survival, just on a physical level, but also, yeah, great emotional support as well.
What do you hope that someone in the middle of their own cancer journey hears from your journey?
I think one of the most important things is to have community. And if you have that community already, because, you belong to a church or a synagogue, great. But if you don't, find it
Mm-hmm.
however you need to. And for me, it was Town. It could have been a whole bunch of other different ways to have that sense of community. You need people to bounce things off of. And I do think, especially a cancer community, there are many conversations people have had, like these treatments can affect your sex life. And some people were like, who else can I talk to but this group? Because they had a women's only group. We were called the chicks. So they, that group would really be able to talk about things that they didn't feel like they could talk to anyone else about. So if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling isolated, try to make these changes. And similarly, like the exercise component, even unless you were like at some stages I was in chemo where I just, if I could walk, to the house from the apartment, I was grateful for that. But if you can do more, like really try to find that thing that gets you going, that partnership, that group, and I found cycling, but I would say it could be anything. And that may not be your jam, but find something that is your jam and keep trying, because the physical exercise is really critical to pushing back on that recurrence.
So after the second journey, considering how different it was from the first, has your perspective on life itself or any goals you have in life changed from the moment that your second cancer was removed?
Yeah, I think I am a little bit better at thinking about, does this particular thing really matter in the scheme of things? I'm never going to be the duck that lets the water roll off my back.
Yeah.
At every turn.
Yeah.
Oh, everything, it just rolls off my back.
Yeah.
But I do pause on that. When I'm getting a little worked up about something, I am more likely to say, I've got my health right now.
There you go.
I'm able to do this thing right now. And that's so important. I don't have more than this life in my belief system. I think this is it. And so, and I also, this is maybe not how a lot of people think, but I also feel like when I'm cycling, for example, I love to descend. I go really fast, which kind of some people find, irresponsible or spooky, or like, what are you doing? You're going way too fast. It gives me such an exhilaration. I have so much fun. And I do think sometimes when I'm doing that, if this is how I go out, I'm doing something I love. Like cancer isn't taking me out.
I think that's a very beautiful perspective, because, and hearing you say that gives me, it like fills my lungs with air, because it just puts you back in a place of remembering that we never really know when or how our end will be. But what we do know is that we want the time that we have here to be, as fulfilling as possible. And for that to happen, you really do need to surround your life with the things that you love to do the most, and the people that you love the most, and the things that you find uplifting and inspiring, and then just throw the rest away. In terms of the negativity, the drama, the challenges, it's all going to be there all the time. But it's a good reminder, to keep what you love at the forefront.
Right.
So I love that. What are current life goals that you have, or at least one major one that you want to see through?
What I'm working on right now is a book on the changing politics of renewable energy in the United States. And I love doing research and writing and learning new things. And we have a contract with Oxford University Press. My co-author, Frank Laird, and I do. And we're super excited to get this wrapped up in 2026 and published. And once that happens, I'll go up for promotion to full professor, something I haven't really, talked about here. But, obviously my research got totally derailed during my cancer journey. And I didn't teach. I did try to continue some research, but some days that was obviously just impossible.
Yeah.
I do have like 2 years where I don't have things getting published because I just couldn't. So this book project has been a long time in the making and will mean a lot to me. And I think it's important. I think it's a really important book. So I'm excited to get that done and out in the world. And then already have other research projects I'm really excited about. And I'm also just so excited for my daughters. One is graduating in a couple of weeks, actually, from Northeastern University, and excited to see what she does with her life. Um, and then my other daughter is in New York City, and she just got her first promotion in her career job. So my girls are well on their way, and it's just that's not a goal so much as just a joy of seeing your children
Yeah.
thrive. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely something to look forward to. That's for sure. And
Yeah.
early congratulations to your youngest. That's huge.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
So I have just one more question left, and this is actually the $1 million question. Where do you think that your fire inside comes from?
I think from my family. I think that everybody in my family has this. A whole group of survivors going way back when, from whatever that thing is.
Mm-hmm.
But the person who most recently really embodies this is my mom. And I mentioned we just lost her this summer. She had fought through so many illnesses for so many years, and everybody acknowledged that she just took that body as far as one could possibly
Wow.
imagine. And she fought and fought, sometimes, very almost angrily. Um, and then she would relax into that next stage. And so, whether that was moving from her house, moving from independent living to assisted, um, she just fought and fought and fought. And lived with many surgeries, so many things. And so yeah, I think that my upbringing was to fight, to persevere, to hang in there, to rise above, to give back, um, to be open, to have like a sense of humor. My mom loved to party. She loved a great theme party. For her celebration of life, we had a luau and wore like wigs and grass skirts and stuff like that. So I really think, yeah, that comes from my family.
Yeah. She sounds like she set an amazing example
Yeah,
to allow you to be as successful as you have been in multiple areas of your life. And now to
yeah,
be an inspiration that's carrying her spirit to so many other people around you, not just your daughters, but then anyone that's listening to your story in any forum across the board. So kudos to you for not just living that spirit that you got from her, but also spreading it to the rest of the world.
thank you so much. I appreciate that. Love to you, Mom,
Aw, yes, love to you, Mom.
wherever you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with you, for sure. To
Yeah,
anyone that's
yeah.
listening to your story that's also feeling very inspired by everything that you've talked about in your journey, are there any places, organizations that they can go to support you, or any organizations that you support?
Yeah, I do think Colon Town is the most important one to support. There's also, all the different cancer institutes and colorectal cancer institute, things like that. But for me, Colon Town was number one, the most important thing, and helping them they've left Facebook. So if you just do a Google search, I'm sure they'll come up. But I think that would be the place to support.
Absolutely. No. And thank you for having the courage to share it and to be so open and honest, because I know it's not easy to relive even through conversation. But I understand that the purpose a lot of times is to help others and to inspire others. And that, is what I always call like nectar, for those of us who are seeking
Yep.
it. So thank you for breathing life into us today by sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sitting with this conversation, what really stays with me isn't just that Kathleen went through cancer twice, but it's how she approached it. She didn't just sit back and hope for the best. She asked questions, a lot of questions. She pushed for answers. She got second and third opinions. She kept showing up for herself every step of the way. And at the same time, she didn't get stuck in the why me of it all. Of course, she questioned that. We all do. But she didn't live in it. She didn't stay in that. She stayed with what was in front of her, which was the next appointment, the next decision, the next step, the next day. And there's something really powerful in that balance. Because the truth is, we don't get to choose what shows up in our lives, but we do get to say how we're going to respond to it, how much we advocate for ourselves, how much we pay attention, and how willing we are to speak up when something doesn't feel right. After hearing her talk, you can feel how much that shaped the way that she moves through the world now. Not perfectly, not even fearlessly, but intentionally. Thank you for listening. Until next time.
The fire inside.
If this story moved you, inspired you, or gave you something to hold on to, please take a moment to like this episode wherever you're listening and share it with someone who might need it. You can stay connected with us on Instagram at the Fire Inside Podcast for behind-the-scenes moments, upcoming guests, and continued conversations about what it takes to persevere, overcome, and rise. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Fire Inside. I'm your host, Sarada, and I want to take a moment to recognize the team that brings these stories to life. This podcast is produced by Andrea Denise Johnson, Stacy Young, and myself. Edited by Brad Phelan. Mixed and mastered by Martin Stubbing. With set design by The Pink Hammer. And original music by Mark Batson. And production services from Local Astronauts. Truly a dream team. And together, we want to remind you that when you're faced with a challenge, you can quiet the noise and listen to the fire inside of you.